Hi, my name is Veronica Lee, and I wanted to share some information with you about how our thoughts, in some ways, aren't really there, how they don't actually exist, but they are more of a potential. What I see is that we have a constant storyline of who we think we are or who we might want to be, and it's played out on a regular basis because of the thoughts that we are creating. Now, in essence, I have often denied that we are creating a reality based on our thoughts alone. And so if you watch some of my other videos, you will see that. However, I do want to give you a picture of the process, metaphysically speaking. All right. So as we have these thought projections, they are more or less intentions. They are just fragments of who we could potentially be. As soon as we have this energetic projection of a thought, it actually doesn't turn into anything unless we infuse it with some sense of soul energy, some sense of intention of yes. All right. So, for example, if we want to look at a linear timeline, an A, a B, a C, right, going along, and for most of us as humans, that's going to start at birth, age 1, age 2, etc. We basically are a construct of everything, of everyone, in terms of a collective thought form. So together, we created this reality that says we want to experience life as a human. We want to experience it on this place called Earth. And we want to experience it in this condition, in this configuration in which we will have a sense of self and other, okay? So in our experience, we strongly notice and feel self and other. And of course, that can cause conflict, or it can cause us to bond with people and have these euphoric experiences of joy and oneness. But in essence, who we are as a construct was created from this original impulse to experience something different than the oneness in which we came. In terms of our thoughts, as they manifest in this human form, we have learned over the past, 100 years or so. Some of the new thought thinkers were saying this, 100 years or so ago. And of course, we have the spiritual mystics who've been saying similar things, for centuries. However, as a group, as a collective, we are starting to come to a place in which we are recognizing that there's this divine impulse that's within us and that somehow it's related to our thoughts. Now, I do want to bring some clarity to what I'm saying. When I speak of thoughts, I'm not talking as if they are a thought and then suddenly, there, boom, it manifests. At this point, when I'm speaking of our thoughts, I want to really include the unconscious thoughts, right? Those are actually running the boat, more so than the conscious ones, as well as our emotional experiences and reactions to life. But I also, for a moment, would like to include this idea of a soul intention. What did your soul come here to experience? So in that larger pool of thought projections, they're basically a potential. So even if we've made a specific soul agreement to experience something, that can be, compromised, that can be changed, that can be, wiped out completely if we choose. It has a much stronger impulse than, say, a decision that I want to buy this house next week. All right. When we are looking to the bigger picture, let's just, again, scan out a little bit, we are creating thoughts as instantaneously as we are here, right? In the grander scheme of things, we are here but a blink of an eye relative to all of existence. A thought is exactly the same. It's a blink of an eye in the multitude of our thoughts of the day, or in terms of our intention for our life. But what is that moment? What is that time frame in which that blink happens, where something, happens? It can be described lots of different ways. And I don't want to go too technical because, in all honesty, I don't have so much technical information. I'm just giving you that which I can bring in as it's described to me. But anyway, so those thoughts as they start to form are really more of energetic impulses. If we start to look at energy as a wavelength, let's say the wave is on a downhill slope, and then we have a thought, and boom, there's a little peak, right? So just look at it from that perspective. Anyway, in those moments in which that blink or that impulse sparks, there's potential there. And yet, there is also the potential for it to not exist. So in the same instant that we have this thought or this intention, it negates itself into the nothingness, into emptiness, that it never existed to begin with, so to speak. So I know that sounds a little strange, but just let me give you a picture here. When we are working into the reality that we are experiencing, this one right here, we are really, in essence, bringing a thought projection from the mind of the one, from our oneness, our allness that we experience. And as we do, we are infusing those thoughts. I want to experience what it's like to be Veronica Lee. I'd like to experience what it's like to be her dog, or I'd like to experience what it's like to be a tree over here. There's this impulse that goes out, and it is then met with a what I would call a physical substance in some way. Okay, it's met with an agreement that then joins to become manifest, and therefore we have this experience of a physical self, an experience of a physical, plant or tree or pet, right? And of course, that's extremely valid. It's just as real as anything else is, okay? The thought, however, had to be imparted with this other energy. What I'm trying to get to, what I want you to really sort of take in a little bit, is sometimes we are so worried about our thoughts, our unconscious thoughts, maybe our soul agreement, or these other energies not being in alignment, not being correct, not being pure enough, that somehow we're screwing up, we're messing up whatever is to come in our lives. So in a human that is really struggling with negativity, we can actually see, let's say, the results of that. Okay, this is not to say blame the victim, but we may see somebody who struggles in his or her life, and they constantly, are negative and say, everybody I meet is really mean to me. And then, sure enough, everybody they meet is mean to them. But if we've tried, if we said, I'm tired of having that thought form of everybody I meet being mean to me, and I really want to start to shift that, then we start, being kinder maybe to others. Maybe we start thinking everybody I meet is kind to me. I trust other people, and we really work on affirmations, and then there's still a little bit of that resistance. So for example, we then continue to meet somebody who's not kind to us. That's more of the unconscious stuff perhaps running. Or maybe it's a soul agreement in which we wanted to have a phase in this experience called life in which we feel resistance from others and feel what it feels like to be, treated poorly or rejected. All right, and maybe there's something in that. Now, the problem is, of course, if things are going well, we don't generally have a problem with how we think, or even thinking about how we think if it's affecting us. It's if we want something more than what we have. For example, I want to change this pattern, or I'd like to move into more abundance or make some kind of shift, and I can't seem to be able to do that, then there can be that resistance brought up to our awareness that says, maybe I should change my thinking. And when we do that, sometimes it can help. We might see immediate results, and other times it may feel like something is a little deeper here. So what I'd like to invite you to do is to go into the nothingness, the emptiness before the thought or immediately after the thought. So what does that look like? What does that mean? Well, if what we have is a thought projection, I'm experiencing this reality because I've thought it some way, shape, or form. I've created self, I've created this image of self, and I've created this environment. If we look at it more from an empty experience, if we can start to pull away from the so-called reality, we can start to feel into those little points in which there was no thought. What I mean by that is it could look like meditation. It could look like purely accepting this notion, this idea that nothing is that real anyway. Or it could be that you start focusing on, nothing or emptiness, right? So if, for example, our minds are full of thoughts, well, it's kind of hard to stop them for most of us. Perhaps we learn to breathe, become more present, and allow more emptiness, allow more space. Perhaps we look for this idea or feel into this idea of listening to one hand clapping, right? So there are some practical methods. The value of the emptiness, of dissolving and letting go of the emptiness, is we've let go of the grasping of the somethingness that has created whatever it's created. So in other words, if you are trying to move out of something, a continuous pattern of a thought form that's taking you down a particular road, perhaps you start to recognize its invalidity. That if you can start to see, it was just this momentary thought that happened to be infused with something and it moved forward. So let's loosen that. Let's lighten up. Let's look at this possibility of the space between the thought and that thing that it grasped onto to create a reality. Let's look at that space and that emptiness, and what we will find is where potential exists. So in emptiness, when there's nothing, there is pure potential. And where there is pure potential, anything is possible, including recreating realities or including letting go of the reality that you are perceiving right now. So just food for thought, something to play with, something to let go of and experience. So enjoy your thought projections, enjoy your experiencing of the nothingness, and enjoy co-creating your reality in a whole new way.